my name is Lauren Hollows for NOI Education Services, and we are lucky enough to be back for part 2 of my interview with Tamara Simon. You can find all of Tamara's details below, and please do, if you haven't already checked out part 1 of our video. Tamara is a small business specialist, and our conversation in our first part was really focused in and around the challenges that a lot of small businesses face. Tamara, though, we did start to touch on, and in this particular episode, I really do want to look at, you did, after you wrote your the 5 Little Pigs book about like small business, you then went on to write the 5 Little RTO Pigs, specifically focusing on RTOs. Can you tell us a little bit more about like what was the driver for that, and also how is the RTO business unique? I get a lot of inquiries on a regular basis, like, I want to buy an RTO, I want to start an RTO, I've run businesses, I've run small businesses, but this is not a problem. And I'm like, okay, let's have a talk. So I'm really interested to like hear your journey, your experience with it, and how you feel RTOs are different, some of the nuances that fall into that category.
Yeah, look, thanks for that. Why did I write the 5 Little RTO Pigs? Oh, initially it was like, well, why not? And also I was presenting at Angela's Vivacity conference and said I would launch my book. So it's, that was sort of initially how it came about. But to be honest, there wasn't any book, program, or anything about running the business side of an RTO. As I said, most professional development, if not all of it, and I was delivering a lot of that compliance training and things like that. It was just all about that. Yes, we touched on HR things about, what trainers, what requirements they need to have and things like that. But there wasn't anything about, well, how do I manage a team, and how do I write, simple systems, and what about sales and marketing and finance and all of that other stuff? Because, as we talked about in episode 1, there's a lot more to a business than just compliance. There's a lot more to an RTO business than just training. So because I knew that there wasn't a lot of that business understanding, that's why I thought, well, let me rewrite the 5 Little Business Pigs into the 5 Little RTO Pigs. And what I did, Lauren, is I customized the language. So, at face value, is there any difference business to business? The reality is no, right? But the language is different, right? And because I wanted people to work out where they were, do they have a straw business? Do they have stick? Where are they actually sitting? And make it relevant, I actually not only customized the language and put different examples in, so I put RTO examples where I might have had a small business example, but I customized every single chapter. So at the end of it, there's actually an action panel that relates to the 4 areas within an RTO. So whether you're the owner, CEO, or manager, the second is whether you're a trainer or assessor, the third is if you're in compliance, and the 4th is in admin. So that it all applies. So regardless of what position you held in the RTO, there was a way to go, okay, well, what does this bit mean for me? Because all of that should be how you holistically look at the RTO business, and also to gain input from your staff as part of that. So I think, yes, at face value, there's not a lot of difference. There's certainly language. And I previously had, the Take Another Look website, which was my RTO website. And then rebranded as myself as part of my 20-year anniversary, and then just put all the RTO stuff under a separate link. I'll provide that to you in case you haven't got it, Lauren, so people can access that as well. But I think for RTO businesses, I've always said that compliance should be integrated into just how you run the business. So I think it is that absolute switch. But if I look at the standards, and like you, we've been around the traps, Lauren, we've been through lots of, changes to the standards and all those too many times. Exactly. I've always said, okay, if we just look at the standards, what does it really mean? This is what I think it is, right? It means that you're not run by dodgy brothers, right? There's some financial viability and managerial delegation, right? That you have qualified people, and there's some rules specifically around that. That you have a great product or service, right? And again, there's some rules around that in relation to assessment. That you keep really good records, that you provide accurate marketing information, and that you are supporting your customer throughout their journey with you, which is the student journey. Well, if I look at that, I could actually put that into any other business, right? It's just that things like the QI, the CEO declaration, the QI reports, and obviously the rules around assessment and the rules for particularly for trainers, there's some specifics. But to me, that's the nuts and bolts of it, right? So yes, there's some rules, but if we still think like a business, there's still finance, marketing, sales, business development, systems, admin, there's all that stuff.
Yeah.
So
yeah, for sure. No, sorry, you go.
You're right.
I think one of the things that I find really interesting is like looking at businesses that make that transition from, let's say we're running a kind of an ERTO, it's an add-on to our business, we're training our own employees, and then they like jump out into a space of like, we're going to deliver job seeker funded groups, or we're going to add cost to our scope, or and I think like a lot of the complexity comes when you start delivering across, like when you start adding all of these additional layers of the funding contracts, the costs, and things like that, and you build out kind of like when we start to see larger scopes and we start to see more diverse cohorts and things like that. I think that tends to be where a lot more challenges come in, like when you've got one piece of legislation that maybe actually is a little bit, it's not complementary to, so like some of the state funding contracts, kind of a little bit antithetical to like what ASK was asking, or vice versa. I think that can definitely be where a lot of the challenges come in, and knowing what master you're serving. Quite often, when we're writing a document, whether it's like an assessment or a training and assessment strategy, the client will sit there and they'll be like, so why do we have to explain that? I'm like, well, that particular part we're explaining for an auditor. And they're like, well, what about this part? I'm like, well, this is actually so that we can pull that out and give that, and so that the trainer understands that particular part. And so they're, it's kind of like, well, sometimes we're writing for our clients, and sometimes we're writing for our staff, and sometimes we're writing for a regulator, and it's learning how to be able to communicate across all of those different groups, but still maintain a really consistent message. And I think that can be a lot of the time where RTOs really start to like struggle, is kind of having a product that where they're delivering to like a really clear cohort versus, and I think certain industries as well, like, I mean, if you've run a civil construction business and now all of a sudden you want to run an RTO civil construction, that's a much bigger shift than like if you were running a retail, business, and now you're adding do you know what I mean? Like just the skill sets that are needed across those ones. And administration is definitely like, for me, that's the thing that's not talked about enough in RTO land. Like we do not understand the value that good admin do, and the damage that a bad admin can do to your organization. We went and did an audit the other day, and we built up an RTO. They had all of the assessment tools, full set of policies, everything built into the student management system. Trainer matrices done, like everything was built there, ready to go. And when admin came into it, this particular admin went, trainer gave feedback of this is too hard. Admin went, oh, that's okay, I'll just pull it out. We need this certificate now. Oh, that's okay. All I need to actually enroll the person in the management system is a name and an email. Oh, but they really need their certificate. Oh, well, I'll just print it out and I'll find a way to get it. Like,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm having flashbacks, Lauren, because years ago I was working with a not-for-profit who were that separate to the RTO was separate to the main organization. And that organization was going through a major rebrand, right? And so I was communicating with the marketing manager about what the new statement of attainment and qualification had to look like and the wording. And I get back the template and basically everything was stripped off because it didn't look very nice.
No, it didn't. Like, it
So,
was too hard, and I'm like,
yeah,
okay.
I
And then, but
didn't
they
think
did
anything.
the training. They showed up to class. Like, yeah, showing up to a class and doing the training and actually collecting the assessment evidence. Like, these are two separate things. But they attended the class. I get that. Like,
Yeah,
you and I, we're on the same page. We're on the same page there.
yeah, yeah.
They didn't do the assessment. They
Yeah.
didn't do that assessment. That's a problem. We can't do that.
Yeah, it's understanding what the user is, and also understanding the expertise of people within that, and certainly in my experience with that example, because they'd taken off the words relating to the AQF and all of that, and you're going, it has to be like that, otherwise we don't have an RTO. And why am I having a fight, an argument with you about this of something you don't understand? So it's those challenges around that one.
I think in like 99% of the cases, it's never done out of malice. Like, it's very rare I'll come across a situation where I'll like go into an audit or something like that. And I interview the person and I sit down and I've identified what the problem is and I've figured out how it's come about, and it's malicious. Like, so often it is driven out of a thing of like, I wanted to help the trainer. I wanted to help the learner. Like, I thought I was doing the right thing.
Yeah.
But like with this complete lack of training behind it. And then you get like managers who turn around and go, well, how do they not know to do that? And I'm like, it goes back to like what my business partner says. I'm like, because like literally you guys, this person doesn't have a position description. They haven't had any training. You haven't signed them off to actually say that they even understand how to, like they even understand what a qualification is, what assessment versus training is.
Yeah.
And you've given them access to a student management system where you've literally let them do everything from build courses to, sign off on assessments to issue out qualifications without any controls in the system. Like,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
not malicious, but like,
Oh.
The problem is that once you pass a certain threshold, it's like, yeah, the damage is done. Like, this is going to be a really big problem to can we fix it? Ooh, we can, but it's not going to be easy.
No, because it's the spider's web of, touch this. I remember in RTO, their marketing team changed some things to make it easier for the sales stuff and things like that. And at face value, looked really good. They thought they'd simplified, but they'd broken the enrollment part. And so they were getting bounce backs and phone calls. So the enrollment team were then going, what that? Because again, you've got to holistically look at what if you touch this, what does it then, filter to and things like that. But also, with the best of intent, you've got to ask the users. And whether that's students or whether that's trainers using things or admin or things like that, those ideas are probably great because we all want it as simple as we possibly can. Absolutely. And I've seen some horrifically complicated RTOs, but a lot of that has come about from I've band-aided and band-aided and band-aided and band-aided, and then years later looked at a form and gone, what the hell? Or looked at a refund policy and gone, that doesn't even make sense anymore. So, it just happens, and let's accept that happens, but there's reasons for that. So let's just not band-aid, or if you do, you have to go back and look at, well, how did this happen in the first place? And that's the issues around systems.
Yeah, and I mean, like, especially nowadays, like, I think everyone is so focused on automation and bringing things online, and And I totally get all of that. But like I've had 2 conversations in the last 2 weeks. One was an RTO that was like going and focusing on getting all of this automation set up. And they accidentally like linked the wrong thing. So instead of linking competency to completion of practical, which was the last assessment the students got, it got linked to the second assessment. So competency was automatically being signed off by their system based on completion of theory, no practical. Right? So it was like literally this one little step had this massive cascade effect, right?
Yep.
And then another one was, and they were looking at moving some training online, and the theory training and assessment was being done online, but the practical was all being done face to face. And they were like, yeah, but we're just like this particular skill, it's just literally done a person sitting on a computer. It'll be fine. We're just gonna do it in a thing. And I said 2 questions. I was like, you're saying that all the students are going to be doing the same task online, same time. The trainer needs to see all the student screens. It's like, doesn't that mean that all the students are going to see each other's screens? Are you not just sharing the answers for everyone?
Yep.
And they were like,
yep.
Huh. And I was like, so you can't do that. They're like, oh, that's fine. We just won't share the screens and the trainer will review them all individually. And I'm like, so now what you're saying is you're going to have to do that with the students individually. So instead of spending 7 hours doing this in a classroom with 10 students, you're going to have a trainer sitting and watching a screen individually for 6 students, like for 10 students for 6 hours a piece. So what was 10 hours of your trainer's time before is now 60 hours of your trainer's time. We have a viability. I'm going to go back to that viability question.
Your profit margin, if you had any, is absolutely been shot for starters, let alone a frustrated trainer going, oh my gosh.
And then it was like, huh. So maybe the best, like the most viable way to do it is to do like what you guys have been doing the whole time. Yeah, pretty much. Sometimes improvement for the sake of improvement is not improvement.
Oh, look, absolutely. Change for change's sake. I'm all for change, but not for change's sake. And it amazes me across and so many examples. But where's the person in the business? And often this is me, but and probably yourself, right? But where's the person in the business playing devil's advocate or just asking the questions? Who, what, when, where, how, why? Yeah. Right? Because you're thinking about what's the worst case scenario? What if we do this and all that sort of stuff? And when you're so close to it, you just don't see it. And there's nothing wrong with that. But you've got to understand, you've got to talk to someone else about it to go, is there any flaws that you can see in this, or could this be simpler or something like that? Because we're too close to our own stuff. But the fact that there's not enough devil's advocate happening in any business at the moment, and all it's doing is frustrating staff and customers and creating complexity because we're not taking more time, because it's just rush, or automation or a software package will fix it. Well, maybe it will and maybe it won't. Don't just rush in as part of that.
Yeah, exactly. So guys, if you are wanting some small business support, I strongly recommend that you reach out to Tamara. You will be able to find all of her details below for both her website and her LinkedIn and all the series that she is running. If you have any questions, by all means, pop them below and Tamara and I will do our very best to make sure that we can respond to those. If you disagree with anything we've said, feel free to duke it out, but do so respectfully. Otherwise, thank you so much, guys. We will be back for one more section next week. This has been Tamara Simon, and my name is Lauren Hollis for NOI Education Services.